Your phone isn't just a distraction. It's actually keeping you from the life that you want. Let's fix that. Half of the adults in the United States claim that they feel lonely. This is literally a full-on public health crisis, and it's no wonder based on how many posts we see all the time of people saying that they feel lonely and disconnected despite being in a constantly connected world via social media. Loneliness is more dangerous to your health than smoking 15 cigarettes a day. It's also more dangerous for your health than drinking 6 alcoholic drinks a day, than pollution in the air. In this report, they also stated that chronic loneliness and social isolation can increase the risk of developing dementia by over 50%. So I saw this tweet, as I'm sure a lot of you did. This girl said, "I miss having a sharper brain. I don't know how to fix it. My attention span sucks. It's hard for me to read books. My memory is horrible and it's hard to retain information. I miss reading, but I literally can't read. I feel so stupid. What do I do?" And I feel like these two things go hand in hand. And I think it's also a self-fulfilling prophecy. Definitely know that when people feel lonely and disconnected, that's typically not when you feel your best. You know, you're not gonna go out and be super motivated to talk to new people and like try a new book club or something when you're feeling shitty. What do you do to give your brain some short, quick hits of dopamine? You scroll, you read other people's opinion, you watch videos, and it gives you at least some form of connection, but it's just not enough. According to the study, there are 3 vital components of social connection: structure, function, and quality. Structure is the number and variety of relationships and the frequency of interactions. So this could look like your household size, your friend circle size, if you're married or in a partnership. Function is how these different relationships serve different needs, such as support in a crisis, emotional support, and quality is the negative and positive effects of the relationship. So your relationship with your best friend, for example, is going to have a different quality to it than your relationship with a coworker. But all of these things can shape your social interactions and connections. Babe, no wonder so many people feel lonely. It's not just social media, you know, it's like the fact that majority of citizens in the United States at least don't live in a walkable place. Most people are really strained financially. There's a huge lack of third spaces. Healthcare sucks. And I feel like a lot of people are having to live in survival mode. And that doesn't always have to look like, you know, you're living at the poverty level. It for sure can, and I think does. But even just the monotony of, you know, the average middle class, you know, like living in the suburbs, you drive to work, you sit at an office for 8+ hours, you drive home. It's kind of soul killing. There's not really room for like creativity or art or even just exploring yourself and expressing yourself. So it's like if you took social media away, just like out of the equation, I think a lot of people would still feel lonely. But with that being said, I do think social media amplifies it. It's just so much easier to go to that and feel like you're somewhat kind of filling the void of, you know, the need of social connection, but you're really not. In a US-based study, participants who reported using social media for more than 2 hours a day had about double the odds of reporting increased perceptions of social isolation compared to those who used social media for less than 30 minutes per day. So if you're using more social media, you're bound to feel more lonely. And they also make the point, which I think this is also a really good point, is like it's not only bad when like you yourself are looking at your phone or looking at a screen, but also when you are in person and people are constantly just on their phone or checking their phone, it's like I don't feel like you're really here with me right now in this moment. Now it's kind of been long enough, you know, especially with iPhones and social media as it is today, because you know there was like Facebook, MySpace, you know, that kind of internet era. But I think it's been long enough now with smartphones that we can kind of see the long-term effects of smartphone usage and social media usage and how it's really negative. Like people have the worst attention spans. People aren't reading books. People can't even watch a movie. So today, of course, like I want to cover all of these things because I think they're all related, you know, cognitive function, loneliness, attention span. It's all kind of under that same umbrella of, babe, you need to like just get off your phone. It's one thing to think of these big ideas like, oh, the soul crushing middle class and like it's like, damn, like you kind of will start to feel a little hopeless, you know. It's like, okay, well there's no point in even trying because it's bigger than me. But when we can bring it back to ourselves and empower ourselves to make healthy changes within our own lives, and once we can start to kind of reap the benefits from making those small changes, it gives us just a lot more sense of autonomy. Okay, I'm in the driver's seat. I, have a say in how my life goes and how I feel every day, and I am able to make a change. So I think one of the first important things to do is set a no scroll zone for connection and also for yourself. I've had a great experience doing this, not allowing myself to scroll for the first hour of the day, and also not letting myself scroll right before bed. They both make a difference, but something about that morning, it really sets the tone for the rest of the day. And instead, I will do things like read a book. I know a lot of people want to read more, but they struggle with it. And doing that, reading first thing in the morning while I'm drinking my coffee instead of scrolling, has made the biggest difference. I think that's really what contributed to me reading 43 books in 2024, because I set a time to do it where I knew I would be focused. And especially when you first wake up, it's like a blank slate, So yeah, reading in the morning. I've been doing Duolingo. There's so many fun brain game apps, but you are using your brain, and it's just little word puzzles or math. It kind of sounds insane. I do math first thing in the morning, but sometimes I do. Even Wordle, something where I'm going to be using my brain. And it has been proven that doing things like that, even doing puzzles, doing crossword, it also really helps reduce your risk for, I know, Alzheimer's. You feel so much better starting your day like that. And not just better in oh, I'm so productive, but your brain physically just feels sharper. It's an actual feeling. You can also curate your social self-care routine. So just a fitness routine or regular self-care, a skincare routine, sometimes we need to push ourselves to create a social routine. And again, it's kind of the self-fulfilling prophecy. I know in periods of my life where I've felt really disconnected and kind of isolated, that's when you want to reach out to people the least, you have that tape playing in your head, whatever it may be, you just don't think people are going to want to hang out with you, or it just feels like the biggest effort. But sometimes it's you just need to snap yourself out of that. I'm not saying that's always gonna work, or that's just the end all be all answer, but doing little things over time. I know things I do that make a difference are, I try to do at least one outing a week. And then also, I really experimented with this during Sober October, which I last did, making plans with people that aren't centered around drinking, because I think that's also a big thing. A lot of people just get together with people to drink or whatever. Once you kind of stop doing that, because we obviously know alcohol is not good for you, but it's damn, if 6 drinks isn't as bad as social isolation, damn, should I just go out? No. It's so true that when you party a lot and you meet people when you're out, sure, sometimes you can make friends, sometimes you may meet someone, sometimes you may actually be able to network, but I feel a lot of the time, those moments, those relationships, if you can even call it that, are so fleeting, and it's kind of, they only exist in that fake bubble of going out and being on the scene. And a lot of people who are heavy in that kind of, culture still feel disconnected and lonely. So my point being, if we are focused on the quality of the relationships in our life, I think it's important to set times, hangout sessions with friends that are not based on going out, drinking, happy hour, let's go get a coffee. Basically all the cheap date ideas that these bros want to give y'all on Hinge, do that with your friends. Take a walk in the park, get a coffee, get a smoothie, cook a meal together. Sometimes the answer is just literally to get out of the house. And I think especially in the winter months, that's even more important. If y'all have listened to the podcast before, I love the book, The Power of Strangers. I would 1,000% recommend that book. But I love the message in that book about going beyond small talk, and instead of small talk or just kind of going through the motions, one of the tips that he had, because he literally tells you how to do it, one of the tips is a third thing that you're both witnessing. So a common example of that is the weather. Basically just using something so it doesn't seem completely random or forced, and then the conversation can go from there. It's actually kind of surprising how often people do want to talk, and it just really depends on, I think, kind of your technique and reading the room and reading body language, because a lot of people I think are shy, but they just don't want to be the one to initiate the conversation. If it's a cashier or something, they're kind of used to people being rude or kind of treating them like a robot. So if you can go above and beyond, and not even above and beyond, bro, because it's not oh, you should do the most for everyone you happen to run into or have to interact with, but it's just like treat someone with respect like a human. And it's just like making people feel seen, you know, and a little goes a long way. Another really easy way to do this is complimenting people, but make sure that it seems genuine, because sometimes, I don't know, like sometimes people think you're being shady. Can I just tell y'all, actually, oh my god, I didn't even tell y'all this story yet. Okay, great example. I was flying back home for Christmas, like little Christmas break. As I step onto the plane, it was like one of the planes where you have to walk through first class. Like it wasn't like first class had their alternate entrance, you know? So as soon as I step on, they're like, oh, like one of the flight attendants is holding the tray of mimosas and stuff. And she's like, oh, like, can you just wait a second? And I was like, yeah, of course. So there was another flight attendant kind of standing by the pilot, like, cockpit door. And I don't even know how we started talking. She's just like, oh, thank you so much. And I was like, of course, like, what am I gonna do? I think I peeped that she also had French tip nails, which I had at the time. And I was like, oh, I like your nails. Like, I like the longer length. She was like, oh my god, thank you. Like, she was so sweet. You could just tell she was a girl's girl. She was like the sweetest. And then I'm like, is this like your first flight of the day? Because I'll be watching the flight attendant day of my life. So, you know, I kind of know how it goes. She's like, this is my first one and done. I was like, that's great. And we just had this like little moment of connection. And it's like, I'm not trying to force it. I could tell she was like in a good mood. She was open to talking. She appreciated that I wasn't being rude about having to wait. You know, I was like turning into a good moment. I thought nothing of it. Later, she's the one to serve my drinks, and she gave me my drinks for free, y'all. I got my little champagne. I got it twice. She gave it to me for free. And it's like not like I was, you know, having a conversation or complimenting her because I wanted to like, oh, maybe she'll do something for me. It's just like, might as well make the best of this, babe. Like, we're all going to the same place. I'm not like in a hurry to go wait in my seat versus waiting here. Like, it just didn't matter. But it just goes to show, like, people appreciate when you're kind. And I think also just when you make them feel seen. Like, you know, it's not like I'm just treating her like, acknowledging that she's like working, you know, it's like the holidays, like, thank you, babe. And she was so sweet. Like, she was genuinely so nice. And yeah, I just know it's like such a crazy time of year. So many people can be so rude. But anyway, that was just a small example. And then as far as keeping your brain sharp, a huge reason, and this was also in the book, The Power of Strangers, a huge reason why so many people claim they hate small talk and they just don't want to do it. It's literally more challenging for your brain, because if you're around someone you've known for a long time or they're just like already your friend, your brain already picks up on their like micro expressions and their tone of voice, and you kind of already have like your flow of how you communicate with them and talk with them and all of that. So it's just easier for your brain. Like, you're not necessarily thinking about all that like consciously, but your subconscious brain knows. So when you're talking to a new person, your brain is like trying to kind of figure them out or like calculate like, how should we best talk to them? Like, is this a threat? Like, do I like this person? So it just is more mentally tiring, which is also a good thing because that's how you keep your brain sharp. Like trying new things, talking to new people, getting new perspectives. It's kind of a 2-in-1. Cognitive function and decrease your loneliness. Oh my god, I didn't even plan to talk about that. And like, wow, my mind. If you follow the Stella podcast on IG, you know I did a 2025 ins and outs. And one of the outs was being too woke. And this kind of ties into this. And I also just kind of wanted to explain, because I do not mean that in like a right-wing type of way. I think if you know me, you know that. But what I mean is like, and it kind of ties into this, like just the vibe of someone who is on their phone too much, like a chronically online person. I just really don't like the performative activism, because ultimately you're just being annoying and you're not making the world a better place. And it's like you're just on your phone all the time. And then you will talk to one of these people in real life and they're like, I don't know, just not a vibe. And the same is true for the right-wing content, you know, and that's why so many, especially like young boys and teen boys, are kind of becoming like that, is because the algorithm like will give them a couple videos and they'll watch them, so that they get into this cycle or like wormhole of only watching that content. And I will kind of peep it myself. I'm not saying the red pill guys are the same as Sprinkle Sprinkle. It is not the same. Like, it's not. It's just not. If you know, you know. But sometimes it's like my whole For You page will be like bad date story times or like why you shouldn't get married or this and that. And it's like I have to remind myself, like it will seem like everyone's talking about this. This is like a widespread thing. And sometimes, you know, it is a common issue or like a prevalent issue, but you have to keep in mind this is an algorithm, you know, and I don't know. I don't always like the vibe of like you're talking with someone in person and they just keep referencing TikToks, like not memes, but just like, oh, somebody said like this. And it's like, I've had to kind of stop myself from doing that too. Because on one hand, it's like, okay, this is a form of media consumption and like getting the news and like, you know, hearing other people's opinions. But then on the other hand, too much usage, it's like you're just kind of in that wormhole of like only seeing things from this perspective and the algorithm's just feeding this to you because it thinks that's what you want and it wants to keep you like hooked in to like watching. So diversify your news sources and even just like the mediums of which you consume content, like read some studies, read books, read articles, even like watch a podcast, you know, instead of just watching podcast clips or like just someone on their phone, like in their bedroom, like, well, did you guys know? Like, it's just like, oh my God. I have kind of mixed feelings about that, but I'm sure you know the specific vibe I'm talking about. And it's also annoying how quickly things are trends. So that's also like someone will be so passionate about a topic and like, well, you're wrong. No. And then the next trend the next week will be about another issue. And then that's what they're focused on. And like their bio is just always changing. It's like, damn, you don't care about this group of people anymore? You took it out your bio and replaced it with that? Like, it's just like, I don't know. Do you care about what's going on in the world? Or are you just kind of addicted to your phone and want a reason to get mad because that's like, you know. But yeah, I think it ultimately comes down to social media overconsumption. And I think people just need to get out of the house more and like just, I don't know, like be like, that's the thing, lack of third spaces. So the thing about overcoming a phone addiction, social media addiction, or just even wanting to create more connections in your everyday life, change is always going to be uncomfortable, and pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone is going to be uncomfortable. So I think when you kind of accept that and when you know like, okay, this is good, like reframing your brain to see the discomfort as like, no, this is good for me is so key. So I've been doing Duolingo. I'm back on it. Like I didn't know before, like I've had an account for a while, but I've just kind of done it on and off. My parents have been doing it. My mom especially has been very consistent for like a year. She was showing me how it's like kind of a weekly challenge and you can like compete with other people and like the leaderboard thing and all of that. Like I didn't know about that before. So now I'm like, oh, I get it. But anyway, I took Spanish for quite a few years in school, and I live in a place where Spanish is widely spoken. Like I kind of always have. So I'm dedicated to really like getting back to learning. I did jump ahead a couple lessons because I know the basics, but it's kind of like getting to a point now where I can't remember like everything. And I'm like, oh, like I get frustrated, but then I'm like, no, this means that I'm learning. And you have to like reframe your brain. If you're at the gym, a weight feels hard, it's like, that's good. You don't want it to feel too easy or you're not going to see the result. It's like there's different types of pain, you know, and you kind of just have to think something through. Like I know if I stay in bed on my phone for 30 minutes or an hour, God forbid, when I first wake up, it might feel kind of good in the moment, but then ultimately I'm kind of going to feel like grumpy or like irritable. I'm going to kind of have that weird like staring at a screen too long headache. Sometimes it almost feels like I'm dehydrated. I don't know, versus the pain of forcing my ass up, getting some steps. I'm gonna feel so much better long term and also be proud of myself for like doing something that I don't want to say was like challenging, but I mean, that's the best, but that I didn't necessarily want to do 100%, you know, and that builds so much more confidence and you're more likely to be able to do something that in the future that is a little bit harder and a little bit more challenging. It's just so true that as you grow up and like become an adult, it's like it's up to you to push yourself. Like even growing up, it's like your teachers, your parents can only do so much for you. Once you become an adult, it's like, babe, your life is in your hands and it's time to like realize it, you know, and realize that you're in the driver's seat and you can do what you want to do in your life, and you can empower yourself and give yourself self-confidence through getting out of your comfort zone, talking to a new person, not over consuming this content that's like ultimately just not good. Another thing, hot tip, I don't know if this is just like because I'm like a content creator, but when I do scroll, I try to, bro, not to sound literally so annoying or like so type A, but like I will kind of try to even make that productive. Like, okay, I'm looking for video ideas, or like I'm seeing what the trends are, or I'm trying to like learn something like how to do makeup, or like a recipe, or like a topic for a video, you know? So I'm kind of taking mental notes, sometimes actual notes, but I'm not watching like brain rot. I mean, if you're around my age, like, I feel like that's kind of like for kids younger than us. Bro, iPad kids. So that is going to be this week's episode. I would love to hear what you do to stay off your phone. If you've struggled with the side effects like loneliness, brain fog, just kind of feeling like not as sharp, or like your attention span sucks, what do you do to help with that? Love you guys so much. Don't forget to follow. New episodes every Thursday, and I will talk to you guys next time. Bye, everyone.